In this video, we're going to take a look at what you may come across when looking up how to use LINQ online. Oftentimes, documentation is going to use what's called query syntax. When working with LINQ, there's two forms of syntax. There's method syntax, which is what we've been using throughout the course, and then there's query syntax. If you're familiar with MySQL, or also known as MySQL, then it's very similar to querying an actual database. You can see here that on Microsoft's documentation for LINQ, Language Integrated Query, we can see an example here where they have a scores array, and then they're using the query syntax. It's a little bit different than what we're familiar with. They're still doing the same thing though, where they're populating a collection, and they're saying from some variable named score in the scores array, where score is greater than 80. The only difference here is that they must use select score when using this syntax. So let's take a look here at how we would convert this to method syntax, because I highly recommend you stick to using method syntax because it's going to be much more familiar to you and it's going to be a lot easier to work with your other code. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to take this example and put it into a C# script. Here we are in C# and I basically copied that example. We have our scores array, and then here we had a collections of type IEnumerable, and I just turned it into a universal data type of var. So score query equals from score in scores. And you'll see here we're getting some errors. The reason for that is because we need to include using system.link in order to query this. So this example here is going to populate this score query. And then if I wanted to iterate through that new list that it created, I would basically say for each score in score query, and then here I could debug.log score, right? And nothing here has changed. This is exactly how we would do it if we were using method syntax. The problem though is that a lot of online documentation is using this syntax. The only thing you need to know here is that when you're using query syntax, it requires this select keyword. When you're using method syntax, it does not. So if I wanted to convert this, how would we do that? Well, here, let's go ahead and call this score query, we'll say syntax. And let's say here I want to say var score query is going to equal, and I like to usually start it off by just doing the operation and then assigning it to var after. I think it's just easier that way. So to do this, I'm going to basically select the array or list that I want to sort through, and then we're going to use the where extension. So here it says from score and scores, where score is greater than 80. I'm going to say scores where, and you'll see here that it's looking for, we have the option to pass in a predicate function here, or a system func. So it's passing in an int and returning a bool, and it's going to generate a new list based on that condition. So where is going to be our inline for loop, or for each loop. So here I'm basically going to say score, we'll say score goes to, lambda operator, score, and then here I can check to see if the score is greater than 80. And what this is going to do is it's going to return true if this current score is greater than 80 and populate that list. So in order to populate the list, we need to include var score query equals this operation. So this line of code is the exact same as this line of code. There is no difference in functionality, performance, or anything like that. What you have here is the exact same. The only difference here is that we don't need this select score. It will automatically do that for us. So just a quick video on how to transfer this and be okay looking at it online from a query standpoint, because you should be able to read this and understand what it's doing and then convert it into method syntax.